Welcome to the Grit and Grow podcast, where we talk to guests who are pursuing excellence in both sport and life, who encourage and motivate us to become better mentors, coaches, parents, and athletes. My name is Shane Sowden, head men's basketball coach at Briarcrest College, and also your co-host.
And my name is Justin Simpkins, co-host and director of Prairie Hockey Academy. Shane, another one of those episodes that's going to impact me for a long time. Casey Bruggeman, head coach, Jamestown Jimmies, Division II NCAA basketball. I think he's a young coach that has a huge, bright future, and people are going to get to know him here today.
Casey was fantastic, and again, people aren't going to know the name now, but in 10 years, this could be someone you're watching in the NCAA tournament, March Madness, that sort of thing, and bright future ahead. I've loved getting to know Casey the last few years, through some mentorship opportunities, retreats, and what a guy. Like, the energy he brings, the passion to compete every single day, and to invest in his players. Like the care and intentionality to provide an environment to compete and grow, but at the same time grow as young men, and to be excited for life and what you get to do every day. Like, my goodness, 31-year-old Division II head coach of the Jamestown Jimmies in North Dakota. Fantastic interview.
Yeah, there's some really cool stuff about as we get into part one and part two. Part one today, you're going to learn a little bit about his background, where he played, where he coached, how he got into coaching, just talking about like his purpose and leaning into the gifts that he's been given, and being leaders, finding your purpose, knowing that you did something that you're supposed to do, giving it your all. He'll quote scripture. It was awesome. Part two, you're going to get into, I got to spar a little bit with him. It was sort of fun, pushing him on this idea of transformational relationships and why he believes that's where people are, relationships are where people are transformed and how success happens. So enjoy our episode today. Enjoy part one with Casey Bruggeman. Welcome to the Grit and Growth podcast. To our listeners today, we have Casey Bruggeman with us. And Casey is not a household name to you in basketball coaching, but I'm telling you, we have an incredible young basketball mind and head coach of a college basketball program that you will want to know. And so, Casey, welcome to our episode today. Love to have you on the show.
Awesome, Justin. Shane, felt like we maybe should have brought the recording equipment to Stone Harbor. This would have been nice on the beaches of the Atlantic Ocean there when we went on the leadership retreat, but virtually still a pleasure.
Yeah, it is. Thanks for breaking the news. We all had this really cool opportunity to get away together and do a leadership retreat where we learned some really cool things. Casey, I had a blast learning with you, and I think it just it showed your humility, your ability to have a growth mindset. Just being vulnerable and talking about some things about how do we learn and grow as leaders to be better listeners, to ask better questions, and so that we can actually develop better humans. It was an incredible trip. What was your biggest takeaway from it?
Well, I think it was awesome just being with you two. We had been connected a little bit through a Bible study in years prior, but just to be with you guys in person and join a group, I think it was about 12, 13, 14 of us to just get together and really be present that weekend. I left the weekend full of hope and definitely recharged and ready to go and keep tackling the challenge that is leadership, the challenge that is coaching. I think it was just awesome, just an awesome group of people. And I was really thankful for the experience.
All right, we've got to book it. Next year, Stone Harbor, we're bringing the equipment. Round 2 with Casey Bruggeman. It's on the agenda. Here we go.
I'm all in. Let's do it.
Nice.
All right.
Fantastic. Casey, head coach of the Jamestown Jimmies, NCAA Division II men's basketball program, down in North Dakota there. But before we get into that and just your coaching journey, because that absolutely fascinates me, just want to know a little bit about Casey Bruggeman growing up. You come from a family, it seems like athletics was a major part of your upbringing, and just how that shaped you, and just a little bit of like, what was it like growing up in Pelican Rapids, Minnesota, as a 3-sport athlete?
Yeah, I think when your dad's a head girls basketball coach, a golf coach, helps out with junior high football, and athletics are your life. Some of my earliest memories are playing whatever type of games in the yard with my younger brother, where my dad in his mischievous ways would somehow manipulate the game to make it really close at the end. And one of us would be going inside with tears. So that competitiveness started early. I always remember going to my dad's basketball practice, and he's always been my role model, my hero. And growing up in the gym, sports were a big part of my life. And then you're in a community where I was fortunate to have a high school programs when I was younger that were very successful. So you saw those players out on the field, out on the court. Those were your role models. Those were your heroes. And athletics has just been a big part of my life. And I'm very thankful for the relationships that I've been able to have through sports, and thankful that I get to coach for a job. It doesn't really feel like a job for me, and thankful to be involved to this day. But definitely athletics were really big growing up. My mom loves sports. My dad loves sports, and we're very grateful for that.
So grew up in Minnesota, 3-sport athlete. I mean, Minnesota's like hockey town, right? We're talking high school hockey, everything shuts down, but I don't think hockey wasn't one of your 3 sports. Am I right?
Hey, I'll tell you what, outside of the elementary school at Pelican Rapids High School, we had a couple sheets of ice down there, and I went through a hockey kick when I think I was in 4th grade. Me and my buddies got skates for Christmas. We'd go down there. I remember one time, that was probably the only fight I'd ever got into. It must be something about being on the ice. I think me and my buddy, he slashed me in the calf, and I got mad, and I think both of us were too scared to actually throw a punch at each other's faces. So it was a lot of wrestling, and we're down on the ice. And so I had a little hockey kick, 4th, 5th grade. And then coached at Minnesota Duluth, one of the best hockey programs on the women's and men's sides in the country. So I'm a Minnesota guy. I enjoy hockey. I enjoy the passing, the spacing. We don't have the blue lines in basketball. That would change things quite a bit. It's a little bit easier to score in hoops. But yeah, hockey's great. I love it. The 4th grade me, I was loving hockey, but I think my dad might have steered me a little bit back towards the gym.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe that, D3 might have been around grade 4 for you, Mighty Ducks 3. What a movie.
Amazing.
Anyway, yeah, absolutely.
Mighty Ducks 3. I just keep it thinking of Minnesota hockey, Mike Modano, former Prince Albert Raider, all that kind of stuff. Anyways, but yeah, you would have fit in well
before Casey, but yeah.
I know. I'm dating myself a little bit. I'm the old guy on the podcast, but yeah, Casey, I think you would have fit in well growing up in Southern Saskatchewan. I think you would have had no problem.
I think, I've been training for this podcast for about a year. My roommate is from Weyburn, Saskatchewan. So, I feel like I've got a ton of the dialect down, and I'm ready for this. And he was a hockey guy. The 4 Nations got a little testy. He was pretty amped up for that Canada USA game. And we were watching in the living room. I was, I'm not huge into it. I enjoyed it. I was happy for him that he was happy. He was talking about golden goal. And I was like, I remember that just a little bit. But we got to bond a little bit over that, and he got to learn a little bit about hoops as well.
Well, this is good. We've already had a shout out of Pelican Rapids, Minnesota. We now have Weyburn, Saskatchewan mentioned, and which I have a ton of family near Mydale, Saskatchewan, outside of Weyburn. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked here. But yeah, lots of shout outs today.
Hey, so Concordia College alum, same with myself, which is kind of neat. We're both Cobbers at one point in time, Casey and I. I think the difference is Casey played a impactful role when he played for the Cobbers, voted team captain in your senior year. Talk just a little bit about, I think you grew up in an athletic family. You played. Athletics does not, it doesn't come without setbacks, right, and challenges, and that's where, as we coach, and the 3 of us do this, the ability to coach and help coach athletes through setbacks and adversity and challenges. And this is what athletics is teaching us for our next stage in life, whether that be the next level of our sport or the next area in the sport, or just another sector altogether. Tell me a little bit about your college career and how that set you up for the next steps of your life.
Love my time at Concordia College. I got to play for somewhat of a legendary head coach in Rich Glass, who had been a head coach for 30 plus seasons when he took the job at Concordia College. And I remember he sat in my living room in the spring of my senior year to kind of finish the recruitment with me and my family. And he talked about how, Casey, the guys that you're going to meet here in these next 4 years are going to be your friends for the next 40. And just that right there has always stuck with me. And going to play for him was one of the biggest blessings of my life. I think I learned early on the value of relationships. I think it would have been easy for me if I wouldn't have played for a guy like that to get into coaching and chase wins. And yeah, I love the win. I'm competitive. I love the win. But Coach Glass always emphasized with us that, in 40 years, guys, no one's going to remember the score of the game. No one's going to remember if you who scored the most points, who was the best player, but they're going to remember how you treated them. They're going to remember how you came into the locker room and showed kindness and showed up to practice and cared about each other. Relationships were the most important thing. Now he said, hey, it's dang important we win because you got to learn how to compete in life, but you got to do it the right way. So my experience at Concordia was awesome to get that perspective. I battled a couple injuries. I had surgeries my sophomore and senior year that allowed me to jumpstart my career in coaching and just to see basketball from the bench side. And it felt very natural. And sometimes God works in mysterious ways. He gives you those opportunities and it helps you get a little bit of a head start on what might be coming down the road. So I love playing. Didn't quite break through just because of some of those injuries, but played on some really good teams and was honored to be voted a captain my senior year. Just a very impactful experience and friendships that will last for the rest of my life.
Well, and Casey, so were you always on was coaching always in the back of your mind growing up? Like in high school, obviously you come from a coaching family, coaching background, or was that not on the radar? Like you were a math major in university? Were you thinking teaching? Like what was the thought process there?
I went into college not knowing if I wanted to teach and coach at the high school level or get into college coaching. As soon as I got into my freshman year and saw basketball season, I was like, wow, this could be a year-round thing. This is awesome. There was no really looking back for me. For some reason, I've always felt very comfortable in the gym. I always felt very comfortable in a coaching setting. And just being around those mentors, my assistant coaches, Coach Grant Hemmingson, Matt Peterson, Freddie Coleman, and then Rich Glass, those guys were very impactful for me to show like, hey, this is what you can do as a job. I'm like, this is awesome. There's nothing else I'd want to do other than coach. So that was definitely the plan going into Concordia, was to see if it was going to be the high school route or the college route. But coaching was always something I knew I wanted to do.
Well, I think you went on to complete a master's in education in phys ed, right? Physical ed. And then I think, athletic administration as well. So that, yeah, kind of prepared you for the road a little bit in the process of who you're becoming. That led to some pretty cool opportunities after being a grad assistant. I think you ended up at you mentioned it already, University of Minnesota Duluth in an assistant coaching role there. And this is a big program. Tell us a little bit about, what that entailed for you in that kind of sports management role.
Yeah, well, let me mention my 2 years as a grad assistant. I'm thankful for Joe Cattell giving me a ton of opportunities to fail, and learn from that. I think he probably gave me way more than he should have gave me because he wanted me to grow. He wanted me to experience all at different aspects of coaching. He didn't just put me in a box. So he challenged me to do a lot of things that I hadn't done before. And those experiences in those 2 years were transformational for me to be ready to take a head assistant job at a pretty young age at Minnesota Duluth. We were a part of a 4-year stretch at Minnesota Duluth. Justin Wick was the head coach and still is the head coach there, where we took over a program that wasn't seeing success on the court. And frankly, off the court as well. The culture was a little bit stalled out. Didn't feel like guys were growing as people or as players. And when we came in, I was like, hey, we'd be lucky to win 10 games our first year. I didn't think we were going to be very good. Credit to our guys. They really bought into the messaging from Coach Wick and our coaching staff. And we ended up winning 17 games that first year, which was the most amount of wins in about 10 years. And then went on those next 3 years to have a lot of success, including winning our half of the conference my last season at Minnesota Duluth and making the NCAA tournament for the first time in recent memory. So I got to see a completely different coaching style with Justin Wick being the head coach there at Minnesota Duluth. And it was really important for me to have that perspective at that point. I'm a pretty old school discipline type A guy, grew up in a disciplined high school program where this was the way the game was supposed to be played. And Coach Wick really showed me that, hey, there's different paths for players producing the way you need to. And it all starts with having great relationships with your guys. And that's something he did incredibly well and does to this day. And you can see his success there over the last 5 years has been pretty remarkable. So fun experience at Minnesota Duluth that holds a special place in my heart. Duluth, Minnesota does. And I'm excited to match up with those guys here in the coming years as we join the NSIC conference, which they're in.
Hey, it's Justin here. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that I'm a coach, a husband, and a father to 3 busy kids. A couple years ago, one of our daughters was really struggling with her sleep and her breathing and crowding in her mouth. At that point in time, we started looking into things that could help her. And I'm proud to say that we came across a company called SaskMYO. The team at SaskMYO was incredible with our daughter in helping us figure out a solution for her health. The team at SaskMYO made a real difference in her life, in her breathing, in the crowding in her mouth, and in her airways overall. My daughter's back to sleeping better, not grinding her teeth at night, and being able to just breathe, which goes a long way in her physical development. If you have a child that you're concerned about, whether they're snoring, mouth breathing, grinding their teeth at night, struggling with feeding, or just overall mouth development, take my advice. Reach out to SaskMYO.com. Their team there will offer consultations and incredible help for you. That's SaskMYO.com, SaskMYO.com.
So Casey, after your career at Concordia, you move on and you're the graduate assistant at University of Mary. Then you move on and you're the assistant coach at Minnesota Duluth, and then the director of player operations and player development at University of South Dakota. So what was your main takeaway at each of those different stops along the way, which ultimately led to you becoming the head coach at Jamestown?
I think early on, I mean, that's a great question. I think early on in your career, you think, okay, I'm going to be a head coach by the time I'm 30, or a D1 assistant by the time I'm 30, and you're tracking and you're trying to figure out all these different ways that you can get there. Pretty early on for me, it's like, okay, you just got to work as hard as you can in each spot and try to leave a place better than you found it. At UMary, big takeaway for me was just the business of coaching. Joe Cattell, very professional, ton of great experience, filled me in on next level X's and O's, and just introduced me to the business of coaching. And like I mentioned earlier, gave me a lot of responsibility, allowed me to fail and learn from that failure. Transitioning to being the head assistant at Minnesota Duluth, I mean, that was a lot of responsibility. You basically have your hand in every different part of the program, whether it's recruiting, player development, scouting, you're running camps, you're helping anything that the head coach needs. So you get a chance to, in a sense, be your own head coach. Being the head assistant, you have a second assistant you're working with, and you get a chance to have a lot of responsibility and a lot of input as far as program direction. So those 4 years, Coach Witt gave me a lot of freedom to, I guess, put my own little spin on the program's culture and where we're headed. And within his vision, of course, that's the number one thing as an assistant coach, the loyalty piece and support piece of your boss. So those first 6 years, I feel like I really learned how to run a basketball team from a recruiting standpoint, player development standpoint, X's and O's standpoint, all those things that go into coaching basketball. And then those 2 years, the specific title was director of basketball operations. And those 2 years really showed me how to run a basketball program. So in addition to those coach responsibilities that I had for the first 6 years of my career, those next 2 years at the University of South Dakota, I was in charge of anything and everything, from budget to travel to academics to being the liaison to any outside communication coming into our program, which there's a lot at the Division I NCAA level in the U.S. So those 2 years, I think, were really impactful for me. I got to basically be my boss's right-hand man for a lot of different tasks for running the program. And Eric Peterson prepared me well those 2 years to step into a head coaching opportunity here in my 9th season of coaching, which was this last year. So all these different experiences, they give you something. And there was little pulls on my heart from God to take that next step, whether that's going from UMary to Minnesota Duluth, or going from Minnesota Duluth to USD, or USD to Jamestown. And I'm lucky I never felt forced into a decision. And it was really, the path felt natural. And I'm grateful for those opportunities, because I have learned so much at every different stop along the way. College athletics is kind of crazy, but when you have good people around you and good people mentoring you, you can really feel a sense of purpose in each stop.
What really stood out here, you talked about, when we're talking about head coaches and for young athletes or coaches that are on here that are aspiring to go, hey, how do I become a coach at the next level? Your first one is like, well, I learned how to, this coach really helped me with X's and O's. Next one is like, I felt like I just started to learn under Justin Wick of like how to build a team and a culture. And then it's like, South Dakota's like, I actually learned how to run a program, right? The finances and all that kind of fun stuff behind it. I mean, a head coaching role is all of these things. It's not, I think some people think it's just, I get to coach basketball. It's about 10% of your time is actually coaching the basketball at times, right? Inside of here, it sounds, how to build a team was under Justin Wick. And but at the same time, we talked about University of Mary was about, developing relationships with players as well, right? So out of all of these pieces, it's prepared you for your 9th season of coaching where you became a head coach at Jamestown. How many of these, lessons do you bring back on a daily basis? And I just really want to focus on, like the people-based side of what you do at Jamestown.
Everything starts with relationships. It really does. Try to stay on mission at the University of Jamestown. And our mission as a program is to help create better husbands, fathers, and leaders. And I think my underlying why behind that is that I believe the game of basketball has the power to transform lives and inspire the world. And that's that, and that's my why. Like, I think I'm here for a purpose, and my purpose is to help these young men grow on and off the court. And what a beautiful thing. Basketball, it's a beautiful sports. It's beautiful. It's that time where no one has their phones. You're just out there. You're competing. You face challenges. You face adversity, and you get to be there for each other. And man, I faced a ton of challenges this year as a head coach. The most fun thing I've ever done, the most humbling thing I've ever done is be a head coach. And I can tell when I get off mission, that's when I fall below the line, you might say, where I'm not treating people how I should, how I'm not seeing our players as people, how I'm not seeing our coaches as people when I get off mission. But when I stay on mission, things just seem to work themselves out. And certainly the faith foundation is huge for that mission as well.
When you're off mission, what's the trigger? Like, what do you notice inside yourself that reminds you?
Fear, definitely fear. I think anytime I'm off mission or fall below the line, it's usually being driven by fear instead of love. And that's where having a great group of mentors around you and friends around you to help you reframe situations is huge. I would not have been able to have as much fun as I had this last season if it wasn't for guys like JP Nurbin mentoring me, helping me process things properly, and having just good awareness. Because I think fear can creep in a lot of different ways, especially as a head coach or as a leader. You can at times feel isolated, and having someone there to support you and walk with you through some of those challenges, I think it's so powerful. So that's definitely what I feel when I fall off mission is fear creeping in.
And when you find yourself in that space of giving into fear rather than love, are there specific things you do to kind of reorient yourself back to that posture, back to be back on mission and in working from a place of love rather than fear?
I'm bad at this, but I try to pray first.
Yeah.
I think that's important. I think Jesus is the ultimate coach, the best coach, and the best leader ever. So leaning into my faith, usually getting a good night's sleep helps too. And then just making sure I connect with our guys first. And yeah, I think the best thing you can ever do if you're struggling with a player, especially in basketball, just go rebound for them. Shut up and rebound. And just, I'm there to serve you. So if I can serve our guys, that helps me, I think, get back on mission. And it reminds me of my why. I'm here for them, and I'm here to try to serve them and help them be better. And it might look different at different parts of the season and in different parts of their career, but it always comes back to trying to serve them and help them become better husbands, fathers, and leaders, or be prepared for that in the next chapter of life.
I'm just thinking of other coaches that might be listening, and maybe they're recognizing times where they've been below the line, right? And they're trying to figure out, well, why am I below the line? And maybe your just response there of fear is like, maybe that's a light bulb. And I guess I'm curious to say, what would be the outcome of, and maybe it's by being led by fear for too long, right? If you stay in that zone for a few days, what's that worst case scenario that you've experienced?
I think for me, anytime I let some of that fear, just internal, whatever, kind of rot get out at a player, maybe I'm a little sharp, impatient, um, not being able to meet our coaching staff or our players with love. That's the outcome. In that, when it comes out, it's like, wow, this is not the type of leader that I want to be. Yes, I want to be strong. I want our guys to have high standards. I want them to be excelling and striving for greatness. But you have to see them as people first. And the fear, I think, drives you to a place where you just see them as objects in the greater mission. Oh, if we don't win a game, then there's no way we can accomplish our mission. It's just like, is that true? Right? Is that actually true? Or if you face a setback, just reframing that setback isn't going to collapse all the hard work you put in. And what would be the best part about helping your guys through a loss? What would be the best part about a guy falling below a program standard and you having to address it? It's just reframing that. But I think, Justin, to answer your question, it's just, you can feel it when you treat someone in a way that you're not proud of, or that's not aligned with the type of person that you're trying to be. I think that's the output for me.
Yeah, I guess that a question I was trying to is what is the cost of it, and that you did a great job answering it. How do you as a coach go about, if that happens, how do you go about kind of rebuilding that relationship with your player?
Humility is one of our core values as a program. So just trying to approach them, and when an apology is necessary, you can't hesitate. We don't have to be perfect as coaches. We won't be. And I have a slide I show our guys, like, here's who I am and here's who I'm not, and who I'm not. I'm not always right, and I'm not perfect. And those are things that I make sure that they know. And guys, I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm here with you. I think just showing up is powerful, and just being willing to put your ego aside and just say, hey, that was my bad, man. I was a little bit pent up for these different reasons, and I should not have done that. And I'm sorry. I'm going to work to be better. And then just getting back to work with them, getting side by side. But it goes a long way. So if you can have a strong relationship with your guys, and you just keep trying to show up in a humble way and really hear them.
Okay, so I want to ask you about culture. And, people ask me about the success of our program or what drives us, all that kind of stuff. And it always comes back to culture. But I find there's a lot of confusion around what people think culture is. And so, so for you, what is culture? I guess, for lack of a better question, what is culture to you, or like culture building, or what is that? What place does that play? Like, just don't have the perfect question there, but like, yeah, what is culture to you, and why does it matter so much?
I think it's maybe a little bit different for everybody, but I think culture in general is just kind of your shared set of beliefs as a program, because those beliefs are going to drive your actions. So how you, I guess, assess your culture would be, how are we treating people? How are we, what type of disposition are we bringing to the classroom? What type of disposition are we bringing on the court? And for me, just those actions are important, but I think it's those shared beliefs that influence your attitudes, and those attitudes kind of drive your actions. So for me, it's just, we always want to work hard, and we want to treat people the right way. Those are two really big things for me. And if I don't feel like we're meeting that, hopefully going to be curious with our guys and like, okay, could you done a little bit better there? Could you have worked a little bit harder in that drill? And maybe they say no. And I was like, well, you know what? I believe you got a little more in you. And just see how they respond to that. But culture in general is just, I think it's your actions, but your actions are driven by things that are a little bit deeper. So just trying to establish beliefs in attitudes for our guys that, they can go out there and consistently treat people the right way and work hard in life.
And you mentioned core values there. So I'm interested in what's your program's core values, and how similar are those to your personal core values?
It's an interesting question for me right now, just because I've been doing some self-reflection after year one as a head coach. And I liked our core values here this last season. And I'm just reflecting, is this most true to who we are at the University of Jamestown? Is this the most true to me? So this first year as a program, our 3 core values were humility, hard work, and a championship attitude. Like I mentioned before, the humility, that's where everything starts. It's having that humble attitude every day. And I think if you're humble, you're probably going to treat people pretty well. And then if you work hard in life, you can go a long ways. And that championship attitude, we define it at different ways at different points during the season. But for me, it's just having the courage to go for things in life and to believe that things are possible, to believe that you can get better at something, you can accomplish great things through hard work and having a great attitude. So I think for me to lead authentically, our program values have to be very aligned with my personal values. So those are things that I try to bring forward every day. Those are the 3. But this has been a good off season, and I think it is helpful to reflect on them consistently and just, okay, am I living these out? Is there something that might be a little bit more true? Is there a way that we can describe these core values in a way that spur our guys to a bit more action within them? So those are things I'm thinking about this off season for sure.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Grit and Growth podcast. We hope that you enjoyed today's guest and the answers that they were able to give and the stories they were able to tell. If you did enjoy today's episode, we'd ask that you would just follow or subscribe to our podcast. It does help us get the word out and our message. Thanks again. Have a great day.